Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night on TalkTV. I'm Mike Graham. For the next hour, we're going to be leading you through a list of what can only be described as the biggest planks of the last 7 days, and we're deciding who should actually win it. I've got a magnificent panel for the first time put together with great care and even some love. We have got, of course, Alex Phillips. We've got the legend, he hates it when I say that, James Whale. We've got Isabel Oakeshott as well, and of course, for the first time ever, former First Minister of Scotland and leader of the Alapa Party, Alex Salmond. So welcome to all of you. This is what we're fighting for. Oh, trophy, Plank of the Week. Very, very much sought after. Won by an awful lot of people. We're also compiling the list for Plank of the Year as well. You see, if I keep doing that, I'll just leave it there. I'll just move on, shall I? Alex, why don't you kick us off? Who's your first one?
I'm sure he's a regular appearance on this show. It's Sadiq Khan.
It is indeed.
I mean, it's always something he's done or said.
Right.
And actually, you get multiple options per week, don't you, of what you could proffer to the
It's kind of been his week, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has, and I can think of many reasons why I find him hateful. But one of the main reasons I find him ridiculous this week is he is apparently given £5,000. OK, it's not very much, but it's, you know, London taxpayers' money. He's given it to this organisation called First Bricks.
£5,000?
£5,000. It's nothing really.
Why is he giving him £5,000? What's he going to get for that?
What are this organisation, right? So First Bricks are an organisation that say that they need to build LGBTQ plus property for LGBTQ plus people, because, you know, if you are not
they're
straight,
oppressed or something.
if you're not straight, you need to have your own housing. Well, so I was like, OK, so why is this? What is their justification? I actually need to read this out to you because it's such a sort of woke word soup. It's amazing. It's delightful. Right. So the website of First Bricks claims there is systemic inequality in housing for LGBT people. And a mission statement says, what connects us is the feeling that something isn't quite right about the housing on offer. It's not quite right. Then
it's not quite big enough.
No, it gets better. They go on to say,
will it?
if anyone can translate this into actual English, like, you know, I want you to. So they go on to say, by being an LGBTQ plus housing provider who understands our community from our own lived experience, we hope our community won't need to self-censor their homes.
What a load of...
What is self-censoring your home?
Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Well, can I just speak up for Sadiq here? I mean, look...
No,
please
not
don't.
really.
No. You'll never be
Somebody
invited
has
back.
to speak up for him. Look,
No.
I don't think they do.
compared to the other things he does,
Right.
this is just a mere bagatelle. I mean, 5,000 quid, that wouldn't buy one of the tyres in his Range
In a
Rover.
way, that makes it worse. Do you know what I mean?
I know what
Because
it means.
It's
Yeah.
a nothing sum for a nothing project that can't even say why they need it, apart from we don't feel right.
That's not
You know,
even
we don't build our own
it's not even going to
houses.
provide one brick. But let's face it, he's going to have an awful lot of money to chuck around after his great ulez tax raid this week.
Why?
So when you nominated Sadiq, I was sure it was going to be to do with ulez.
Yeah.
Why does he keep getting voted in?
Because I'll tell you why, because nobody else provides a viable candidate. I mean, let's look at the Tory candidate for a start, and we can come to a Reform candidate who I think will be brilliant, but obviously conflicted on
There
that
won't
one.
be an Alba candidate in London.
Are you sure?
But has anyone
yet.
round here heard of the Tory candidate? It's a lady
Hall?
called Susan
Well, I have,
Hall. Does
obviously,
anyone
but
know?
that would be unfair.
Yeah, so she's on one of your shows.
Yeah, she's on my show quite a lot.
Mrs. Miggins that runs the local library.
I mean,
She doesn't
sorry,
really have that
but
sort of
the
presence.
great Conservative Party, the best they can do is come up with someone who calls themselves Councillor Susie. I mean, it is so depressing. So if you ask why does Sadiq Khan keep getting voted in, because we are effectively in a two-party system.
Isn't it also
and
something
it is
to do
very,
with,
very difficult.
Isn't it also something to do with the voting system? Because I learned not long ago that they're going to change it to first past the post for the next election.
sure that's
and
better.
I didn't know that it wasn't first past the post.
No, there's some proportional
That's the
representation.
candidate's a brave lady. I saw her disagreeing with you in one of your other shows, Michael.
Listen,
you
I
wanted
gave her
to ban the Notting Hill Castle.
Yes.
Oh
she
my
wanted
God.
to
I
stick
so
it
want
into
to
Hyde
do
Park.
that.
I mean, what Conservative... I mean, surely if you're a Conservative, candidate, you want to win over the people that would like to ban the Notting Hill Carnival, don't you? Rather than going, oh, I don't want to do that.
But maybe
Because
only
a lot
the
of people
Monday.
really enjoy it. What?
Yeah, what? But enjoy running from machetes, as you call it.
But they only
the
do that
Notting
on
Hill
Monday.
Carnage, because that's what it is.
I agree with everything, but, you know, there is a nice...
agree with everything?
Well, no, I agree with what you say about banning the Notting Hill Carnival, but
Time to just get rid of it.
only the Monday, because it's always the Monday where the violence happens.
I don't think we need any of it.
I think you can do away with all of it. But listen, we've gone away from the original point, which is the LGBT housing. They are all linked. Listen, I'm not the one saying that we've moved away from the original point. It's Chuck in my ear telling me that we need to get back to the LGBT conversation.
You can't have Sadiq Khan, because you can't have somebody who's committing grand larceny there and then fine them for shoplifting.
No, exactly.
So £5,000 a bagatelle.
It is.
Let them off.
Drop in the ocean. Hang on, though, because this is what...
Censor your home. That's what I want to know.
But hang on. Well, let's have a look at what they do in America, because we've got some video of an LGBTQ plus housing estate and somebody moving into it. Here we go.
I remember 6 years ago when they announced that this LGBT apartment complex was going to be built. And I'll tell you, when it opens by the end of July, it will be one heck of a party. Elaine Felton is overflowing with joy.
Look at my rainbow. It's fantastic.
The LGBT senior got a sneak peek at her new home.
Oh, this is going to be a great place.
So do they all have to have?
Like a gym.
Do they all have to have? Do they all have to have the rainbow carpet?
Trans Towers is safe to live in now because there's a rainbow on the floor.
Right.
That's okay. All oppression gone.
I just find that
Come on, guys. This is not doing Erned any harm. If people want to buy houses like that, let them buy houses like that.
Presumably they're not
public money.
Well, that's not public money. That's somewhere in Los Angeles. They don't have any public money in Los Angeles.
No, but we're talking about the
first bricks are only just gearing up. They got their first £5 grand.
Here's a question, right?
That will pay for their first brick.
How come all this stuff like
you lot are the most unruly crowd I've ever had, by the way.
That's all right.
Stop talking over each other.
Trans activism, LGBTQ, whatever it is. How come these minorities, some cases minorities of minorities, have become so powerful? Why?
Well, it's because people think that by helping other people who claim to be minorities, that somehow they will continue to get re-elected, because the minorities are very good at managing election campaigns and making sure that you get a block vote. But my question is this: if you are given a flat to live in, which is LGBT secure or whatever it is, can it transition into a house so that it suddenly becomes a bigger property and you can then bring more people into it?
I thought you were going to ask, can it transition to being cis something?
Could be.
A cis woman house.
Cis bricks. That's what I'm going to demand. Cis bricks. Because
also, will it be? Will it be
I
somehow equally, distributed to people from the LGBTQ plus whatever community?
Do they each get one?
So one out, one each, for example.
I think definitely.
That would have to be the case, wouldn't it?
Doesn't it? You couldn't have more from one.
None of this matters. I mean, if people want to have rainbows over their houses, let them have rainbows. All that matters is when they try to cancel other people or discriminate against women's rights. Right. That matters. The rest of it doesn't matter.
So build secure housing for women who are victims of domestic violence. That has a purpose. I mean, rainbow towers is just a ridiculous excuse for people who can't get a job in the real world with mad-coloured hair, coining it.
All right. James, bring us back to some sanity.
Of course, I'm always known for my sanity.
Jeremy Vine.
First time in his life that anyone's ever said that to him.
And we were reminiscing earlier about the first time we probably did anything together, about 40-odd years ago.
20.
40. Anyway, I would like to talk about Jeremy Vine. Not only has he nicked my dress code of a fancy shirt, so I'm not wearing one today, and a jacket, he's now said the most stupid, idiotic, ridiculous, yes, Jeremy, I'm talking to you, thing you can imagine. He said that cars should pull over for cyclists because cyclists are faster than cars. Now, if this man doesn't stop, we've got some video I'm sure we're going to show.
Yes, we are.
If he doesn't stop behaving like this, then he is going to become the butt of a lot of jokes.
Well, let's have a look at the first video. This is him shaming a driver who happens to be in a Bentley.
Why do you think you've got a right to go ahead of me just because you're in a car?
You deliberately went in front of me in the wrong lane. Get the bloody cycle
What are you talking about? Why are you driving dangerously?
I drive how I want. You don't own the road.
Sorry, you mean you drive how you want? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
My name's Paul and you're a
You've got to love...
Well done,
Jeremy.
Well done.
You've got to love the sound of the Bentley roaring off, haven't you? I mean, that is music to my ears.
This is the first Bentley driver I've had affinity with.
Well, your friend and mine, Mr. McLeod's got a Bentley, but that's another story. Jeremy Vine, he's turned into this kind of rabid cycling maniac, isn't he? Films everything. You see these guys cycling around London with the camera on their helmet.
I think he...
There's something wrong with him.
I mean, every time he goes on his flipping bike, he films somebody. I wish I was still able to drive.
He does it every day.
It does get boring, and I have said that to him. I also think that he's racking up the kind of angst between motorists.
He is.
It's like by continually pumping out this content, he's just basically raising the temperature of the whole thing and setting off the two tribes.
And he's also now in cahoots with that guy Cycling Mikey, who goes around filming people. He's a South African.
There's another stupid.
Well, this guy films celebrities on their phones to get them banned. Which, you know, they shouldn't be on their phones, but usually they're sitting in a stationary car in a traffic jam. And he's filming them and sending it to the police, which I think is a pretty awful thing to do.
Quite frankly, I think he's an idiot. But one thing I've just got to say, and then I think bicycling is probably the worst thing for a big city. It causes more pollution because it causes more traffic chaos.
Also, somebody said this to me this week, in the week of ulez, you know, if the air in London is so awful, why is Sadiq Khan always telling everyone to cycle around in it? Because surely that's going to there for their lungs.
I got stuck in a cyclothon the other week in London. There was about 3,000 cyclists.
I think that's just a normal day.
It would have been great all together, doing wheelies and all sorts of stuff. And they were fighting with motorcycles.
Yeah, that's right.
And I loved that. If I hadn't been desperate to catch my train at King's Cross, I would have been really overjoyed by it.
Well, hold that thought. Here's some more angst between drivers and motorcyclists.
You know what I am? You old fool. You know what I am? You what? You know what I am? You what care? Well, you won't know when you pull up. Come on, who are you then? Roddy Pickering. Who? Roddy Pickering. Who? Roddy Pickering! Who the that? Yeah, me.
Actually, I give him a job here on TalkTV.
This goes on all the time.
I think he'd be very
this
good.
became a viral video because this guy, Roddy Pickering, it turns out he's got some kind of boxing background. And this other guy was asking him out for a fight, and he goes, "Do you know who I am?" And of course, nobody knows who he is because nobody's ever heard of him. It's quite funny.
Before we finish this, get back to cyclists.
Yes.
Because I am fed up with their stupidity.
Yes.
I am fed up with them going through red lights.
Yeah.
I am fed up with them going on the pavement.
Yes.
And now, as you quite rightly say, Alex, doing these wheelies and trying to run into people. We need police tough enough to take these idiots on and sort them out.
They should pay road tax.
I think we're going too far now.
No,
I do a
that's a
bit
good
of
idea,
cycling
road
on a
tax.
Boris bike, and I can reassure everyone that I don't try and do wheelies. That probably wouldn't end well. But look, it's a balance, isn't it? What I'm sick of is the wars between the two things. So as a driver, I wound down my window the other day to really nicely warn a cyclist that I couldn't see him at all. It was completely in black in the dark. And before I'd had a chance to say, I'm just letting you know you're quite invisible, he told me to F off.
No, they do.
That's the attitude now between the two tribes.
And also,
how do they afford all these body cams? I mean, the police can't have body cams. You know, certainly in Scotland. In Scotland, they say they don't have enough money to give all the police a body cam. But there's folk wondering about this capital city. There's an invasion of privacy here.
One last suggestion.
Also,
you will not be able to swear at people without being on a body cam.
Damn, that's bloody ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, you would think there not used to be a rule that you couldn't put people under surveillance unless you had their permission.
But one last thing, why doesn't every cyclist, then, if we've got to keep them on the roads, have to wear a high-vis gilet with a number on it?
I've said this many times. You could easily do it.
The numbers.
You could absolutely do that.
I like that. With the number plates, you can report them.
I think they absolutely should do that. I'm very much on your side on that, James. Thank you for that. Isabel, your first one, please.
So my nomination is actually quite a serious one. It's the old Tavistock Clinic. So many people will be familiar with this NHS-run clinic that basically behaved utterly irresponsibly over a really long period of time, encouraging and fast-tracking very vulnerable, very young people to have gender reassignment, much to their disastrous mental health consequences and physical consequences of many of those young people. This week we learned that the Tavistock Clinic, which, by the way, was supposed to be shut down pretty soon. In fact, I think it was probably already
Well, lots of people thought it was shut down.
Yeah, its life has been prolonged for reasons best known to I don't know who. Anyway, we learned this week that the Tavistock Clinic encouraged and put forward a young man for gender reassignment who could not read or write and had no fewer than 22, he is now aged 22, had no fewer than 14 diagnoses of mental health problems. is it really the right solution to chop that person up? And please, Alex.
Well, no, because this reminds me.
I don't understand any of it.
Back in the day, in sort of Victorian asylums, people would have lobotomies for depression or trauma. They would be, you know, wired up to electric,
butchering people.
It's child abuse. It's mutilation. If you've got a mental health issue, treat it as a mental health issue. You know, dysphoria is a psychological condition. You don't start lopping bits of body off for that.
It is astonishing to me that this clinic still exists after all the reviews that have been carried out, that anyone is letting anyone they love go anywhere near this place.
And is it part of the NHS, this clinic?
It is still part of the NHS.
So it's funded by the NHS, but you know, it's employing people who work for the NHS.
Sinister.
I have a friend who, in later life, transitioned to a woman, and you wouldn't know that she wasn't a woman always.
Really? Okay.
And it made her very happy, and she's very happy.
So
and,
it can work. It
can work. But, you know, people who've transitioned don't want to have people talking about it all the whole time. And this whole trans activism is actually making it very difficult for people who just want to go off and change the way they are slightly and then come back into reality when they've changed.
It's becoming fashionable, and that's what alarms me. You've now got celebrities snatching up kids out of African orphanages and suddenly changing their gender age pride and parading them down the streets of New York. It's become like a, you know, instead of a Gucci handbag, have a trans kid. But it's so dangerous when you're... Yeah, there's a number of celebs now with their, you know, sort of multi-gender children. But what's alarming is the fact that, you know, platforms like Instagram, TikTok, kids are being bombarded with this. And they want to be this. You know, little girls are thinking, I can't be a Kardashian. And I'm never going to look like that. It's physically impossible. And normally dysphoria is a male condition. It doesn't tend to happen in the female community. Now, 3/4 of people going to clinics like the Tavistock are young girls, and there's so many social pressures. They'd rather be a man.
And peddled by big corporates.
It is. And to your point as well about what's going on inside the clinic is that there are so many people kind of willing to do this kind of surgery.
I can't believe they...
Without asking the question, is this right? You know, is this person, you know, fit and proper? Is this person capable of making a decision like this? And clearly they're not doing that.
If fast forward 10 or 20 years, we are going to look back on this time and this period of how we managed this and how responsible adults and healthcare professionals fast-track these young people into operations they come to bitterly regret. Even if it goes well, you know, your friend would probably testify that it's hardly something to be taken lightly, and it leads to a lifetime of health consequences. Is that, you know, are we going to look back on that and say that was absolute abuse?
Teachers are not helping the situation.
No, the schools attitudes is very odd indeed. But we're out of time on that one as well. It's time for Alex Salmond. Your first one, please.
Well, this is the winner. Must be.
Alex, I'm sure.
Just on the basis that a number of people who have had their lives disrupted, their holidays ruined by the national air traffic systems.
Yes.
Now, you know,
incredible story.
It's a tough job, but there's 6,000 planes buzzing about over the UK and Europe and the North Atlantic. That's 600,000 passengers a day. But you might expect, if there's a systems failure, and every system has a failure, then they would switch on an alternative system.
You would think.
Which did the same thing, as opposed to going back to slide rules and pencils, you know, like the cast of Aeroplane 1.
Yeah.
You know, Robert Stack saying, get him out of the sky.
Yeah.
And
bad day to give up glue sniffing, which they said.
Which is what they seem to have done. And the backup system to a fully computerised, automated system which keeps all these balls juggled up in the air cannot be that you go back to manual operation. That cannot be the backup. The backup should be that Swanwick, which is in Hampshire, and I'll come to that in a second or two, because I think it's far too comfortable a place for it to be.
Where do you want them to be?
I want to be Prestwick, which is the other centre. Now, but what should happen is when Swanwick goes down, as it did, then they should go to Prestwick. They should hand over to Prestwick, which should use its operations of the Atlantic and cover Europe. What's so difficult about that?
Are we absolutely sure they weren't hacked in?
No, this is what's interesting. They are absolutely sure, and Mr. Martin Rolfe, the chief executive of this operation,
400,000 a year,
and a 1.2 million bonus last year. I don't know what he's going to get this year, but he got 1.2 million bonus last year.
Obviously.
He says, because he thinks it's reassuring, so he can absolutely say it wasn't hacking. That's not reassuring. reassuring at all. I mean, what's going to happen?
But the reason he's so sure that it wasn't hacking is apparently the system is so old and decrepit that you can't hack it. Because it's not actually modern enough to be hacked, which they think is actually quite a good thing.
They just took the whole system down.
Then perhaps they shouldn't have privatised half of it and given it. They give it to airlines, you know, who are notorious for cutting every corner they possibly can in terms of capital investment. However, I don't think that's actually the problem. I think the problem is they think a backup system is going back to paper and pencil.
Yeah.
A backup system should be something that does exactly the same job. So when you
could they do that? Though? Could they quite easily have just said, right, press sweep?
No, they obviously can't do that, but they should be able to do that. Yeah. They should have a backup system.
It's like everything in these kind of situations that we seem to have all the time now, where something fails. The thing fails. People expect that to happen, but there isn't any sort of proper plan as to what to do next, because quite often what you do next, you know, it's like if you're driving in the Highlands or something, your car goes off the road, what you do next could be the difference between life and death, right? And if you decide to do the wrong thing and start walking the wrong way, you know, that's the end of you. So they need people that can actually think for themselves and come up with proper plans, Alex.
That's right. If only you and I were running the country.
I know. Well, you know, you had a go at it at least. Well, they haven't given me that power yet. Anyway, coming up, we're going to be doing some more planks because I've got one and he works for the Labour Party, believe it or not. Also, we're going to be talking about beer goggles and what effect they can have on you on a night out. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We've already had a very spirited start and everybody's got a lot to say. So we're going to carry on in that mode because before we go back to the panel, it's my turn for my first nomination. And it's a man that I haven't spoken about for a long time. I used to speak about him a lot, but he doesn't seem to get himself too involved in too much of sort of day-to-day politics anymore. And it's the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Mr. David Lammy. Who also has a second job. He's a guy that says you shouldn't have second jobs when you work in Parliament. He's got a second job on the radio. Not working for us, I'm happy to say, but working for somebody else. He went to Brazil. This is the guy who goes banging on about climate change all the time. And I know, Alex, you're quite in favour of climate change, so I'll be forgiving you.
I'm against climate change.
You're against it? What, as a concept?
I want to stop it.
Yeah, you want to stop it, right. Well, so does David Lammy.
No, I know that.
Let's not go down
we
this
said want to stop it.
Yes. So anyway, David Lammy, who also wants to stop climate change, is very much in favour of ulez charging Londoners, very much in favour of making sure that everybody travels by public transport. So he gets on a plane. I don't know what class he went, but my suspicion is he didn't go economy. He went all the way to Brazil, right, to try and fight for climate justice in a plane. And you just think, you know, you don't have to be such a hypocrite, do you? You could have easily done it on Zoom. Yeah. One of the things we learned during COVID was that you don't have to physically go anywhere if you don't want to and if you don't have to. He obviously quite fancied going to Brazil. I don't blame him. I'd quite like to go to Brazil, but it turns out, no doubt, that I'll be paying for his trip to Brazil, no matter the fact that I didn't go myself. So he went off to visit Brazil's president. Does anybody know who that is? I mean, you knew Bolsonaro.
No,
Bolsonaro's gone.
No.
It's a guy by the name. It's a guy by the name of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
Yeah, Lula.
Yeah. We knew she's known.
Isn't he a left-wing nutter?
It's a left-wing nutter. Yeah.
Very good. Made a comeback. Excellent man.
And here's what Lammy said. Right, he wanted to prepare himself for the United Nations COP30 summit, the climate summit.
In the UAE,
is in Belém, 2025.
Belém is quite a dodgy part of Brazil.
Yeah, there you go.
But I know why Lammy went to Brazil, and it's perfectly understandable. James Cleverly's just gone to China. You know, James Cleverly, the most misnamed...
He's in government, though.
He's the most misnamed politician in history. And he's gone to China. We'll be lucky to avoid war. And obviously, with
China?
With China.
Rubbish,
with his counterpart in China, Lammy has to do something to get publicity. If your counterpart's...
Why doesn't he just do something for the people?
Pay for it?
The foreign secretary is going to hog the headlines in China, so David Lammy takes his body cam to Brazil and does all sorts of nice shots talking about climate change.
But everybody says...
And his radio show is absolute shocking.
Thank you. It is shocking, yeah. How about this, right? It could be very exciting, a progressive moment where they could jointly move forward in a deep and long-lasting way, not just for the sake of our two countries, but for the sake of the planet.
I know, yeah.
I mean, he's the MP for Tottenham, right?
For me, he's the scariest thing about a Labour government, him being foreign minister. Because the guy's got all sorts of whack geopolitical ideas. Yeah.
So he wants to.
terrifying.
He also wants to introduce green foreign policy, whatever that means, right? He wants to make sure
that's going to work because President Xi's going to say, "Yeah, we'll close down our factories for you, Lammy." Come on.
And I literally think that David Lammy is a typical Labour politician who talks a good game, doesn't really look after his constituencies. He's a pretty poor part of London, Tottenham, and I think the people of Tottenham would rather he spent some time on the streets of Tottenham rather than the streets of Rio de Janeiro.
Did he muck up your house purchase or something?
He did not. No, he did not. I don't have any particular beef with David Lammy, but I have a beef with hypocrites. With hypocrites, I have a beef.
On the other hand, James Cleverly, I've met many times.
I think Cleverly's a good guy.
And I think he's a very clever man.
Yes.
He was in the army, so he's not just been a politician all his life.
Exactly right.
He's gone to China, and maybe powwow is better than, what is it Churchill said, war or something?
George.
I'm not sure whether China...
Well, I don't know where Alex is getting his intelligence from on this front, but I didn't know we were in any danger of having a war with China. I thought, I didn't know that was us.
Been there.
Are you sure it's not Scotland that are having a war with China? I mean, here's an example of why David Lammy is never going to make a good foreign secretary if he ever gets into government. Have a look at this.
If it feels like neighbourhood policing has vanished, it's not around you. We haven't seen a police while I've been here, and I've been here for a little while now.
There's a policeman. There's a policeman literally standing behind him.
I can't see that well.
He is an absolute...
I think now that you know what's there, have another look at it.
Yeah.
Right, OK.
I rest my case.
Clearly, Alex is not... Alex, you're not voting for David Lammy, then. Why are you being so nice about him?
Well, someone has to stick up. I mean,
because he's
outnumbered 4-1, for goodness sake. Come on.
Vested interest going on here.
Well, you're the one. He might let me on his radio show.
I mean, you're the one. You're the one that created the one-party state in Scotland. I mean, what the hell?
Well, it's only competition. I mean, having replaced the Labour Party, my successors are trying their best to let them back in.
Right. Yes, indeed. Alex, your second nomination.
Right, it's not a person, it's a thing, it's paper straws, because there's been news reports out this week that they're just full of carcinogens and horrible gubbins that pollute our lungs, our stomachs, our children, our waterways, our everything. It's some sort of long acronym of some poly-something chemical, which is even more toxic than you'd find in plastic straws. They don't properly biodegrade. They release all of these horrible, nasty toxins into your body and your environment. And they don't work, do they? The minute you go to a pub and it goes to the top of your nose,
absolutely awful.
It's like a
then you have to turn it the other way up and try and
it becomes like a third artery within seconds.
What is wrong with drinking from a glass?
There's nothing wrong with drinking from a glass, but if you go to a cocktail bar, sometimes you'd like a little straw in the cocktail glass, didn't you? Why? Because you drink it slower. It's part of the...
I feel like Alex may be bending the rules here a bit with the whole plank thing by nominating objects. Is this a
you can. Well, I mean, almost anything. We once nominated the entire Iranian cabinet.
That's a point. Yeah, but I think it's slightly different because it's an institution.
The people, the human beings behind the creation and genesis of the paper straw.
Anyway, James, you're now going to go back to your favourite NHS scenario.
Well, listen, the NHS medical people are keeping me alive, much to some people's upset. But this whole business of the Children's Hospital in London, Greater Ormond Street, the staff have been told they have to learn 150 genders. Now, I don't know who is responsible for that stupid, cretinous, moronic idea, but whoever it is should be brought forth and made to go on their knees and apologise. The medical staff do not have the time. The management of the NHS has reached rock bottom and it needs to be sorted out. I'm actually holding back my anger at this. This is the most stupid, ridiculous thing.
And what's the point of it all?
Nothing.
Because all over the place you see these stories, don't you? In the NHS, in various different...
Could you roll off 150 genders?
No, of course not. Well, I had this conversation with one of my kids who'd been told in school there was 72, and I said, all right, let's have them then. List them. list 72 genders. We got past. No. He couldn't get past more than about 5.
We keep hearing that we've got a mental health crisis in this country, that we don't have enough social services. Listen, you're actively trying to make people go mental. You know, bringing kids into hospital and saying that you've got 150 different genders. You're actually making people go balmy. I couldn't agree with you more.
You made a brilliant case there. Whoever that is, they need to be sacked forthwith. And everybody who supported the decision, it is a complete warping of priorities. As if hospitals looking after children who are very sickly don't have better things to do than try to invent all these ridiculous categories.
And they must sit around in meetings, these people, presumably because they've got nothing better to do.
I've been in those meetings. They do sit around in meetings where they stroke their chins and say, this would be a good idea and this will help us with our, you know, equality, diversity and inclusion agenda.
Yes.
And the person who's employed at vast expense, and we know this is real, not just us sitting around ranting, to do that equality and inclusion job is pushing this stuff forward so they can say they've done a good job on it. What a load of absolute twaddle.
But isn't this also the point? The agenda is the problem. It's not just that these people are following an agenda, but the agenda coming from...
one of the 150.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Can I tell you just a very quick little story? I was going up a lift in a hospital. I won't mention any of it. 2 guys in the lift, very smartly dressed with clipboards, talking about redecorating bits of the hospital to make people happier, talking in the most ridiculous, stupid way. One of them had a little laugh at the end. He said, "This is a very good contract. Very glad we got this." I mean, what are
they going to do? Paint it sort of happy colours?
I actually disagree with you on that because I'm at the moment experiencing 2 hospitals that are adjacent to each other. One is the JR, the John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford. Next to it is the Children's Hospital. The John Radcliffe needs that redecoration. Next to it, the Children's Hospital is fabulous. Our hospital infrastructure is crumbling, and they are right. You cannot provide 21st century healthcare in these dilapidated buildings.
I agree with that, I do agree, but this hospital is one of the newest and most recently built.
Either way, okay. But
and they're always telling us they haven't got enough money to do anything.
Well,
you know, I mean, that's not a top priority either. It has to be said.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
But listen, we're out of time again. You guys are the worst, I have to say. Absolutely dreadful with timekeeping and talking over each other. I'm getting told off. I'm getting told off.
You know.
I'm getting told off by everybody. It's just one of those days. Coming up next, though, we're going to be looking at what is going on inside the office of the Shadow Chancellor. And I've got a BBC story for you as well. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week, and here we are. We're more than halfway through already, and we've still got a little bit of a way to go, but there's some very good nominees. Completely, I think the winner is very possibly already made, but we shall see. Alex Salmond, you've got your second nomination. Who have you got?
Well, my second nomination is the poster police of global media. Global media is this giant conglomerate, the Ashley Tabor King's conglomerate that has grown up over the last 10 years or so. And they dominate now poster sites around the country, particularly bus stops and on buses. They don't have a monopoly, but they control large areas of posters, which is fine, except that they've taken to turning down, on their say-so, political advertising from the Alapa party. And the Alapa needs all the advertising we can get. But they said, we portrayed the Rishi Sunak as a vampire.
Yes.
And they wouldn't take this on.
And there it is.
It was slanderous.
It's kind of cute. I mean, it's not that bad. It's good humour.
Yes, he was meant to be sucking Scotland's oil, you see. That was the point of it. But they said it was slanderous to the Prime Minister.
Oh, for goodness sake.
We could have our position on the sites, they said, only if we just put vote Alapa instead of the vampire, which should have kind of removed the whole point.
So they're telling you can't actually have a political message. You can only name your own party.
Well, they say they have some sort of committee, you know, like the Coutts Bank Committee of News Politically Acceptable, which decides what messages are acceptable to them and which aren't. And now they've turned down another one on King Charles. Now, you know, I mean...
What's the King Charles one? Because I haven't seen that one.
This is a kind of Republican poster. I know that republicanism is probably a minority pursuit, certainly in the UK, perhaps not so much in Scotland, whether it's a near-majority pursuit. But the point is this. They say that is not an acceptable message, because they said it would offend the royal family.
Can I just say, by the way, I'm slightly offended that you didn't ask permission to use the phrase independent republic, which of course is mine, as you well know. The independent republic of Mike Graham, 10 o'clock every single weekday.
Right out of my lips, because unless we stand up against the poster police of global media, who decide what messages the public should see, even these are paid messages. They're meant to be a commercial.
So it's their business.
Are they a woke company?
I don't know what they are. I think they're an exceptionally silly company.
Are they? And can your organisation afford to pay for it? Maybe they were worried about that.
Well, there is, but that's that.
Rude. I think
James,
that's a bit rude.
That would have been a commercial reason and an understandable one. But this was a £5,000 advertising campaign. Now it is true. There's an estimate that we've had £100,000 worth of publicity, because every newspaper in the country has run a story, except, of course, the global media group. They haven't reported it at all.
Interesting.
Which is very interesting. But if we let them off with this, the next thing they'll be starting to censor the title of your programme.
Well, indeed.
You'll be the independent blank.
Yes.
Of
have you managed to discover whether they've done this to anybody else? Any other political posters?
They think Alippa's pretty small, so I think they just pick on.
I think we need to test this.
Yes.
But
maybe
surely the Reform Party could step in.
Yes. Mildly provocative advert, and let's see what happens.
But it's a serious point. I mean, let's
because they also have a bit of a monopoly on a lot of places where you can put a poster.
On many they do, and particularly on the bus sites, which are really quite effective poster advertising. But let's just say it comes to general election, and the poster police in global say, no, we don't like this Labour Party poster, or we don't like this Tory Party or Reform Party poster, and say, no, you can do something else. I mean, what right do a commercial organisation have to control the messages that the public see?
But it's increasingly like this, isn't it? The big corporates are trying to censor us, they try and dictate morality. Activism doesn't come from the bottom up now, it's imposed on people from the top down. And you've got coffee chains saying, you know, mastectomies are cool for kids. You've got, you know, everyone is sort of doing... Ben and Jerry's have always got something to say about everything, don't they?
And then we've also had a sort of a slew of companies who seem to not want to do business with people because they don't agree with whatever it is that they think. Remember Wix? The guy from, you know, the CEO of Wix coming out and saying he didn't want people coming to his shop if they were intolerant of the trans movement.
Really?
And you go, it's a DIY shop, mate. What's wrong with you? You know, if I want to go and buy a buzzsaw or whatever it is you're going to buy, you know, I want to buy a buzzsaw. Yeah. What difference does it make?
From Wix, maybe somewhere else now.
What difference does it make who I vote for or what I think about the trans ideology? It makes no difference.
And that coffee chain, does anybody go in there?
No, boycotted it.
Coffee's no good anyway.
No way.
We don't even.
I've transitioned to another coffee chain. Thank you very much indeed. But so, what's the outcome? Are you appealing this?
I mean, they may get more they bargain for, because I think it's a matter for the Electoral Commission. I think somebody who's prepared to censor, because Advertising Standards Authority doesn't have any authority over political messaging. But the Electoral Commission does, and they should be looking at whether or not it's satisfactory for a company which is wanting to control messaging to own so many poster sites.
Have you asked them?
Yeah,
well, but we're in the process of making that complaint at the present moment. I don't actually believe that, you know, Ashley Tabor-King can possibly know about this. I think it's more likely to be some sort of middle management person trying to earn brownie points with what he thinks the bosses will like. But it's ridiculous, and it should stop.
And the fact that they've now done two of yours would suggest that there's somebing else going on.
Well, I'm feeling victimised. I'm a victim at last.
Don't worry.
I waited all my life.
Well, you've come to the right. You've come to the right place, because we're all victims here. No, it's actually called Victim of the Week. This show. Isabel, your final nomination.
I want a fresh victim in the form of Rachel Reeves. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us return to the Labour Party. We've already had Sadiq Khan. We had another Labour nomination.
David Lammy.
That was it. And now it's time for Rachel Reeves, because our Rachel wishes to give us all a very reassuring message in the run-up to the next election. Ladies and gentlemen, the Labour Party will not be, will not be raising your taxes. Do you believe this?
No.
Do you believe this?
Absolutely not.
So apparently no raising income tax, no wealth tax, so nothing on property or any extra unearned wealth, and nothing else, some other thing she said there would be. I'd given up reading by then, because honestly, we cannot believe a word of this. If there's one thing that we know about the Labour Party, it is that they absolutely, their raison d'etre is to squeeze more and more tax.
So
but the other
money
thing
coming
about
from?
planks, by the way, is that planks generally think that other people are as stupid as they are. And this is why Rachel Reeves is a top nominee.
Yes.
Because she clearly thinks we're as stupid as she is and that we will actually believe her when she talks this nonsense. And just one other thing about Rachel Reeves. While she was saying that she won't be raising taxes, she was also saying that she wants to accelerate green projects. You know, more changes to the planning system to accelerate green developments, as if we don't already have more than enough of those. And Alex has gone quite quiet, which is good, because I'm just going to carry on. This is the last thing that we need, the planning system, to accelerate green developments. It needs to accelerate the not so green developments, which are called basic houses for people.
I was going to step in and defend Rachel Reeves, but I couldn't think of anything to say. but there is one thing about credibility. I mean, I would have thought in Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party, saying you're going to do absolutely nothing and say absolutely nothing is actually exactly what Keir Starmer's looking for.
Yes.
Well, he's really good at it. Doing nothing
the
at
Labour
all.
Party basically saying, don't vote Conservative, vote for us and we'll just do what the Conservatives do. Will be a continuation of exactly the same thing. And what gets me is both big parties make promises in manifestos, and you know after about 1 month you may as well just throw those manifestos in the bin.
Yeah, and they've
nonsense.
proven that. I mean, Rishi Sunak himself in his leadership campaign promised various things that he proceeded to renege on within weeks or even days.
He keeps saying he's going to do stuff and then he just doesn't do it. But here's Rachel Reeves trying to describe her favourite biscuit. Have a look at this.
What is your favourite biscuit? Well, my favourite biscuit is any sort of chocolate biscuit, but I've given up chocolate for Lent. So I don't want to talk about chocolate.
You're in purdah.
I'm in purdah,
okay, so you won't nominate one for us?
Oh, yeah, like a chocolate digestive sort of biscuit. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
How ridiculous. I'm surprised she didn't say, oh, that's a bit of a gotcha question. How dare you ask me about biscuits?
I want to nominate whoever that person was
That's
interviewing
Justine
Rachel Reeves.
Roberts of Mumsnet, is it not?
And you've got a moment to ask a politician a question.
That's a Mumsnet thing. It's a tradition.
They might not. They might have had other questions that they asked her.
And the thing is, Alex, you're wrong about that, because they actually always produce stories, you know, because the politicians waver over whether they can or can't say certain biscuits.
I mean, the other thing,
cool or not.
Just before,
what's your favourite biscuit?
Too many to mention.
Tonix
tea cake.
They're quite nice.
Tea cakes,
But I'm not sure that's defined as a biscuit.
We've still got another nomination to go. We're not talking about biscuits.
Maybe malted milk.
This is what happens when you get way.
I like bourbon.
Anyway, the thing that Rachel Reeves... Is anybody paying attention to me? No, they're not. Let's just wander off, shall I? Anyway, Rachel Reeves' claim to fame is that the reason that they say that she'd be a great chancellor is that she used to work at the Bank of England. You know, the most badly run, commercially useless organisation when it comes to finance that anybody could ever think of. So it's hardly an endorsement, I would have thought. Anyway, coming up next, it's my final nomination, and it's, of course, the state broadcaster. We haven't had them on for a while. This is TalkTV. Welcome back to the Independent Republican Mike Graham. We're almost at the end of the show, but I've got some very, very good breaking news. Unusually for this show, we don't normally have breaking news, but I've received a plaque in the post. Somebody's actually had this made for me.
Is that an award, Mike?
I think so. It's the only award I've ever had. It says Mike Graham, established 1960, which is true. The Independent Republic. You see, there it is. You can't have it. He came, he saw, he ranted.
That can't be right.
The Heritage Society.
This is a blue plaque. You're
It's
going
a
to put it
blue
outside
plaque.
your house.
I'm going to put it up outside my house. I think I'd have to. Or maybe just put it on the car.
Which one?
Yeah, put it on the car.
I can't say. You'll have to just keep visiting the various houses of mine.
Very nice.
When it's on. But before we go any further, because we haven't got a lot of time, in March of last year, it was discovered that the BBC had done something, even for them, which was pretty odd. Now, they used an image which they'd altered. Now, you might not expect this from BBC Wales, because you would expect BBC Wales to be run properly, so that every image that they use would actually be a proper image that was real and not altered. But that's not the case, because 4 years ago, here's an image that they used to promote their coverage of the Welsh elections, OK? So there's the Welsh ballot box with the dragon. It's got a hand putting a ballot into the slit at the top, all very... swish, it would seem, some nail varnish being worn by the person with the hand. Now, in March, however, of last year, it turns out, and this has only just been discovered, that they reused the picture, but this time the hand looks a bit different. Have a look. They've suddenly made the hand black.
It's transitioned.
It's transitioned from a white hand to a black hand. Now, people are kind of absolutely astonished by this, because if you really wanted to say, let's have a hand which happens to not be white, putting something into a box, which is a voting scenario, you could find you could find plenty of pictures that would be exactly, you know, perfectly helpful. But why take the one white hand that they had and make it black? It just seems extraordinary.
People are saving money. They don't want to pay another hand actor.
But why are they changing it?
They've been caught with their hands in the ballot box.
I think
their fingers in the ballot box.
I'm sorry, but I think, as half Welsh person myself, I think that was the same hand from a lady who'd been lying on the beach in Porthcawl.
You think, yes, it can be hot down there.
And got a really nice suntan.
So, you know, it was described to me by someone. I actually used to work at BBC Wales, and I can totally imagine this, why it would have happened.
Yeah.
But it was described to me as someone the other day as Thing from the Addams Family doing blackface.
But that's what it's like.
It was really funny.
But imagine if they'd taken whoever it was in a picture of their face, which was white, and they turned it black. That would be an offence against all offences, wouldn't it?
It would certainly be reported in the BBC that way, absolutely.
Yeah, it would.
So you don't think my
Here's what the BBC spokesman said, and you'll like this. This is great. BBC spokesman said, "It appears that the photograph used as part of this graphic has been altered, which, although there is no intention to mislead, should not have happened, and is not acceptable BBC practice. We will be reminding our staff of this."
Sigh.
Sorry?
Not
so you're not going to actually get rid of anybody. They shouldn't have done it, but it's OK. But please don't do it again.
I'd quite like to know why they did it.
Well, why would you do it?
Compared to the things that go on in the BBC, the British Brainwashing Corporation, I think that I don't think this is a sacking offence.
I think it's all the same.
Well, I think it's always a sacking offence. And don't forget, the people doing this are being paid by us.
We
right?
want
they
much
are
less
now,
of that.
you know,
and them.
Yeah.
Just take their cranes away. You know, just take their coloured cranes away, and that'll be fine.
If you were to alter a hand and you were a freelancer, you've got paid another shift to alter it. Yeah, well, yes.
No, but the person whose hand it was,
I don't know,
must have been paid for the original.
Can you imagine the farce if the hand had started off being brown and it was altered to white?
No,
no,
heaven forfend.
Scandal.
That could never happen. Now, I've got to pick a winner. So, my hand is at the ready for the plank of the week. There's been some great nominations, and you have, I still say you've got a bit less unruly as time has gone on, so well done for that. Now, I always get told off for nominating or making my own nominations the winner, and this time I'm not going to do it. But I think in the week that we have had, it can only be one winner, and I'm afraid, I'm sorry this will disappoint a lot of you, but I'm going to give it to our newbie, Alex Salmond, because the air traffic control disaster.
Alipov won something at
Yes, there you go. Put this down as your first win. First win. The NATS, the National Air Traffic Control System, which doesn't work and is still actually causing people not to be home when they should be home. So NATS, the National Air Traffic Control System, plank of the week. Well done. You've won. Alex Salmond, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Can I thank my family, my production team,
of
and
course.
everybody who's helped me win
yes,
this.
Absolutely. Why not?
I thank you all.
And I'm going to thank the entire panel, Alex Phillips, James Well, Isabel Oakeshott, Alex Salmond, of course. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up next, it's The World According to Mike Graham. That's almost as good as this show. Friday nights are changing on TalkTV with not one, but two Mike Grahams. I've got Plank of the Week at 7 p.m. and I've got The World According to Mike Graham at 8 p.m. That's two Mike Grahams for the price of one. It's not what I was told. You'd be mad to miss it.